Okay, I'm going to take you to the quick view of the Principals Council and the topics that were talked about there, things that would be of any interest to any of you on staff. So here we go. Song service, we did worship. Welcome to everybody. There's some new teachers or new principals. The teacher at Willits, somebody has stepped up to do that, at least temporarily. So they introduce that person. I can't tell you the name. DNA Review is talking about the strategic plan that the conference had for the last 5 years, and the education department has one piece of that, and it had 6 points, and they were: produce more Journey to Excellence schools. Number 2, make Adventist education more affordable. Number 3, develop an overall marketing strategy for schools. Number 5 was, or 4 was identify ways to serve the students not within the Adventist education system. 5 was advance student commitment to Christ and His mission. And 6 was enhance the student learning experience, sort of focused on having a special education consultant for the conference. So we talked about those. Bill attempted to try and get that whittled down to 3 topics instead of 6 topics to make it a little more doable over the next 5 years. And with little work, I think they got there, and he'll report on the voting for that at our next meeting. Small school pastor had a quick worship. We had a great lunch at Rio. They have wonderful chefs there. We did not see the 10+10 video, although there is a lot more effort to try and get 10+10 going again and double the number of those given to that program, which is about 300 right now that give monthly. Marketing quarter focused on Justine from Napa and their attempts to do full project-based learning. It sounded exciting, and it also sounded a little crazy, and we'll see how that goes for them this year, but they've really bitten off a very, very big chunk to do this all in 1 year, and I wish them the best, but I'm a little cautious about what they're doing here. I'm not sure that jumping in that fast is the smart thing to do. And we also listened to a guy from Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa has 22 acres, and they've leased off 5 or 10 acres to a guy that farms that and sells the produce commercially. And now he's working with the school to do some agriculture lessons, do some stuff in business and marketing. And they also have a produce stand out there that takes the vegetables that are farmed from this land, and they sell them out in front of the school. And sounds like an interesting project. School safety spotlight. Actually, we talked about head lice, and this is very controversial, but I will show you this anyway. Let me just flip to this PDF here. The gist of this information was that we are maybe freaking out about head lice more than we should. So this is from the Centers for Disease Control and their recommendations for the treatment of head lice. And basically, by overreacting, this is what they see. Typically, a lot of schools, when they find lice, they send the person home immediately, and they can't come back until they have an inspection that shows them to be clear of head lice. But this is what CDC says. Many nits are more than 1/4 of an inch from the scalp. Such nits are usually not viable and very unlikely to hatch and become crawling lice. Or they may in fact be empty shells, also known as casings. Nits are cemented to the hair shafts and are very unlikely to be transferred successfully to other people. And number 3, the burden of unnecessary absenteeism to the school, to the students, families, and communities far outweighs the risk associated with head lice. And finally, misdiagnosis of nits is very common during nit checks conducted by non-medical personnel. So what they're saying is, don't send the kid home in the middle of the day. At the end of the day, You tell their parents they've got lice. They start treatment immediately that night, and if they're in treatment for head lice, they can come back the very next day and not miss any school, and there is very little likelihood that actually the head lice will be communicated to another student. So this is not what we typically do, but it's being put out there, and this is the current suggestions for what we do with head lice. So think about that. You can go to the CDC, and if I can scroll down here, you can just look at this. http://www.cdc.gov/ if you do /lice, it will come up with their recommendation and the discussion about this. So if you have an interest there, check it out. And that was Safety Spotlight. So we talked about best practices, school board nuggets. We did not do we did. Albert suggested that we try and, as principals, that we try and share our vision of the school at every board meeting, at least for a few minutes, rather than just telling them what we did. And a little bit about trip approval through the conference. We all do that fairly well. Iowa testing, ours are in. Had a few little corrections to make, but that was fairly uneventful. In terms of announcements, the Teachers Convention in Chicago, they are still attempting to provide basically everything. $300 or $350 allowance for travel each way. Room and board, they're trying to cover everything. But apparently this all has to be worked out with the NED. So Bill says hopefully in the next couple of weeks they will know with that, and we'll pass it along as they find out. Teachers' evaluations, I'm supposed to have those done in January, I think. Actually, I thought it was March. But anyway, I will need to be doing teacher evaluations this year on each teacher. Principals retreat at South Lake Tahoe. Just a final notice that was going to happen, October 27 to 29. Elementary curriculum update. That's the Bible Encounter series in February, our 2-day event. More than likely will happen at Sacramento Union Academy. Apparently that's not final, but they're pretty sure that's what's going to happen. Professional growth plans. We had quite a little discussion about that, about why teachers don't do it. I suggested if you give them money, they will come. Others were, as principals, were trying to collect all the money for all the teachers so that they could do something campus-wide in terms of professional development rather than each person doing it individually. I think we do a pretty good job with the way we do it. I think each individual teacher is going to have different needs and different interests, and I think we need to look at the school, and I think we have been doing that to say, let's look at our own needs and find something that you can go to that will meet those and still be something that's of interest to you. So at any rate, there's some discussion about that. One of the things they're considering is moving the deadline down to when you have to turn in your sheet from October to maybe into November or December. DI trainers, this is was going to be a face-to-face conference. Now it's going to be a Zoom conference for the afternoon. I think this affects Debbie. So it will just happen in the afternoon from 4 to 5:30, I believe. And I don't remember the date, but Debbie does. Secondary curriculum review doesn't affect us. Equipment endowment, every so many years, every 3 or 4 years, we get the equipment endowment, which is the interest on some endowment that they have out there. We're going to get a whopping $250. Typically, this is a piece of equipment that serves the whole school, not just an individual room. So be thinking of something that we could purchase for $250 that would benefit all of us. Sports philosophy is for high schools. Data roll-up and dashboard. Barry just passed along that we all in the conference did a very good job. I think more than 30 of the schools have no data roll-up errors, and we're one of those. So there's just a few left that are still having some problems. Monthly reports and timesheets for teachers, that actually applies to me, and I'm working on taking care of that. I've turned in about 2 timesheets over the last 7 years, and apparently they want something more often than that, so I'm sure I can accommodate them. Band Festival we didn't talk about. Popcorn Book Review. There were just a few people that had book reviews, but not very many this time, and I wrote them down someplace, but I can't remember what they were. Small School Library Grant. There was a little raffle for the money that was left over that had not been dispersed to schools, but only the recipients or only the principals of small schools got those prizes. So at any rate, good for them. Hope they enjoyed the stuff they got. And pretty much that ended the day. So that's in a nutshell. If you have any comments or questions about any of these topics, be sure and get a hold of me and let me know. Thanks.